All right, we are creating the cow catcher next. Cow catcher, we're going to use a loft to do that. We have the measurements for the bottom part of this and then the smaller top part. We're just going to draw both of those and then loft between them. So I'm going to click on Create New 2D Sketch, choose the base view, and then just like I always do, just start with a basic shape that looks like what I actually want. So I've got vertical lines, I've got a center line, and here. Now to ensure that this top point is centered on this bottom line, I'm going to use my vertical constrain tool and say that this top little point here should be vertically constrained to this green dot. The green dot represents the center of a line. So when I click on that, that forces those two to be centered. Now I can just use the dimensions from the paper. It's 1.8 in the back, an inch in total height, and 0.25 for this portion. 0.25, 1.8. This should also be 0.25. Just make sure that it is. And then the total height is 1. And that gives me my bottom part. That should be all of it. Now I need to build another smaller version of that shape above it. And the distance from the bottom one to the top one is right here. It's 0.75. So back in Inventor, when I click on Finish Sketch, the way that I can build a new drawing above this previous one is by using a work plane. And if I come up here and click on work plane, I can't click on this sketch because it doesn't have any flat surfaces yet, but I do have an origin point. If I click the plus sign over here and go to my origins, the XZ plane is the same location. So if I click on XZ plane, and now I can click on the corner and either drag this work plane up or down. Up are positive numbers, down are negative numbers, and I can type in here 0.75 and hit enter, and now I have a work plane that is the correct distance above that previous one, which I can now draw on. So I can click on the edge here, create new 2D sketch, and it doesn't look like it, but now I'm 3/4 of an inch above that previous one. And I can draw the same shape again, but a little lower. And I want to ensure the only place where these two are exactly the same is in the back. They should be that long surface in the back. They should both be in the same location, down right here. And then these measurements, so I'm going to go back into this. The distance of the back is 1.2. It also has a 0.25 vertical there. And then the total height is 0.75. So here I'll do 1.2. Say that this is 0.25. And notice that moved the wrong piece, so I'm going to come back up here. I hit Control Z to undo that. I'm going to fix that line so that line doesn't move using the fix constraint, which is the lock. And now when I put in 0.25, it should move it up instead of down. Now instead of using the vertical constraint to center this point at the top, I can also just dimension it. So if I hit D and dimension those two, if the total distance is 1.2, half the distance should be 0.6. And that will do the same job of centering it. So there's always a lot of different ways to do something. And then I also want to ensure that the center points of both my previous drawing and this one are the same. If I try to click on a vertical constraint, notice how I can't click on this up here. It hasn't been projected. So the bigger shape actually isn't up here. And the way that I can make it exist up on my new place is by clicking on Project Geometry and then just click on those lines. When they turn yellow, now they've been projected, and those lines also exist on my new plane. And that's something that occasionally happens automatically, but in a lot of cases you'll have to click on Project Geometry and do it yourself. Now I can click on the vertical constraint, click on both of those top points, and it'll make sure that they're both centered with each other. So both shapes should have the same bottom line, and they should be centered both of those points as well. And when I have both of those shapes done, now I'm ready to do my loft. So now I'm going to create the loft. I'll finish the sketch and then choose Loft. Loft lets me pick two different sketches and create a new shape between them. So right now I'll click on my first shape, choose Click to Add, and then choose the second shape, and it should just automatically do it. And I still have that work plane. I can't delete it. All I can really do is come over here to the browser, right-click on it, and turn off visibility. So this is where a lot of you are probably right now. So let's do the next part. We have a couple of different windows in the front. They're not all the way cut out, but they're 0.1 in on each side, and they have a depth of 0.05. So on the front, I'm going to pick one of them. It doesn't matter. I'm going to click on the front and say New Sketch. And I could just use the line tool to draw the basic shape again, but I don't have to because of this. The very last tool in your Modify box up there at the top, it's called Offset. Offset, when I click on it, all I have to do is choose the shape I want. Offset lets you recreate that same shape, either bigger or smaller, whatever shape you click on. So I'm going to click on Offset. I click on that line, and then I'm just going to click anywhere I want. And then dimension one of those sides, dimension one of those sides to 0.1. It's going to make all of them 0.1. All right, so now I'll finish the sketch. I'll extrude this back. How much do I extrude it back? It's really not a lot. It only goes 0.05 back. So 0.05, I want it to cut. And when I click OK, oh, looks like I've got an error. So I might have the wrong measurement somewhere. If you don't have these things in the front, there are a lot of things that can go wrong with it. Usually, if you can get to this point, it works. Let's see if I can do it on this one. Yeah, that side worked. Great. Well, so I do an offset. I say 0.1. Let me try this one more time here. I'll cut it 0.05. Oh yeah, now it works. Okay. If you can't get those things in the front, that is not a problem. This is where everybody should start up again. We have some things in the back that are pretty straightforward. You're just going to extrude three circles out. We'll do that in a second. But one thing that we know about this is it's actually hollow on the inside. And it's hollow with the depth of 0.1. If you want to make something hollow, it's really easy. You just use the shell tool. Right here in Modify, when I click on Shell, what I want to do is click on the face that I want to disappear. So if something's hollow, at least for the shell, one side has to be hollow, and that's the bottom. So I'm going to click on Shell, click on the bottom, and then choose 0.1 as my thickness. And when I click OK, it's going to take whatever shape it is and hollow it out so it's 1/10 of an inch hollow. And that'll work with a lot of different things. And then the last part is just adding those on the back. I've got 3 circles that have to be made. All of the measurements are right here. They are a little hard to read in an isometric, but I can figure it out. So I've got a circle down here, a circle straight across from it, and a circle above it. I'm going to make these all equal using the constraint. So if I change the dimension of one, they all get changed. Or I could just, do the diameter of all of them. The diameter of these circles is up here. It's 0.125. So I'm going to say 0.125. That changes all of them. And then I have a couple of other dimensions. We always dimension distance to the center of circles. And I'll leave these dimensions up here for a second if you want to check them out. I read this wrong. It's not 0.625 from the bottom hole. It's this top hole is 0.625 from the ground, or from the base. There we go. Once I've got all those dimensions in, I can finish the sketch, extrude it, pick. In this case, I've got 4 different things that can be extruded, so I have to click on the ones that I want, and then the extrusion should be right here, 0.125. And then weirdly enough, there's also a chamfer on the edge of this. A chamfer is a sharp edge that's created. We can do that by choosing the chamfer tool. I'm going to click on the lines that should be chamfered. And in this case, I'm given a distance and an angle. So it's 0.01 at 45 degrees. So I'm going to say distance and angle, 0.01, 45 degrees. Now I can just click on the edges that I want. Apply. And then I'll close in and you'll see how a chamfer works. And I have to click on it twice because I have to click on the face and then the edge of the face. And when I click apply, it chamfers it. And this is mostly cosmetic, but a chamfer is like a fillet, but instead of a round edge, it's an angled cut. And then this piece is now done and ready to be colored in.